Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is almost afternoon. Sorry, I'm short, so it's going to take me a second to get up here. All right. So, as you guys were just told, we're going to talk about building personalized journeys and talk about the different types of data that go into that. So, zero-party data versus first-party data. Before I get into that, I'll just introduce myself just briefly. My name is Tanya Plaza. As he said, I'm Messaging Operations Director for Digital. We are a multi-channel messaging company that facilitates senders to be able to have conversations via marketing, via SMS and via email. And with that, I will have Erica go ahead and introduce herself and talk a bit about Wine Enthusiast and just give a high-level intro.
Sure. Thank you, Tanya. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So I'm Erica Strum-Silberstein. I'm second generation of Wine Enthusiast companies. We are initially a commerce business selling everything people need around the wine lifestyle. As well, we are a media company with an award-winning publication where we rate wine on the 100-point scale. And I'm happy to be here talking a bit about data. We'll keep it interesting for y'all today.
So before we get started with how this data is used, we should define what is the difference between first-party data and zero-party data. It's a relatively newish conversation in the industry where they've started to differentiate between first-party and zero-party. I'm sure you are all familiar with first-party data. That's data that you get from your customers or your consumers that interact with you. So that's any type of website interaction, any type of information that is shared via a relationship directly with the consumer. Zero-party data, it takes it a step further. Zero-party data is any data that is received that is proactively offered up by the consumer. So that is anytime a survey is filled out, anytime any type of pop-up is filled out, anytime that there is a preference that is given to you by that consumer, that's considered zero-party data. The evolution of it comes from the industry having discussions around the different privacy legislations. And so they've just decided, they've just tried to have conversations that differentiated between the different types of data. So let's get into the reason why you guys are here and why this topic is interesting, and that's to hear how brands are using their data. And so Erica, why don't we go ahead and get started with some of the ways that you guys collect your first-party data?
Sure. So I think the easiest way to think about it is the lower the number, the closer you are to the customer. So 0 is even closer to the customer than first, because with zero-party data, the customer is actually volunteering that information. So it could be a poll or a survey, and we do a lot of these things at Wine Enthusiast. So with first-party data, I think the best thing we've done is utilize our content to get first-party data from customers. And we do have a media business, but I would suggest that any commerce business is an expert in something. Not everyone's in the wine business, but you could be in the coffee business, you could be in the faucet business, you could be in the beauty business. You have something interesting to say, and if you give consumers an interesting piece of content, they're more likely to buy from you later. So one thing we've had a lot of success with is lead gen, either on our own website or on social, on Facebook, on Instagram. We will create a PDF. It could be for us something like pasta and wine pairings or ways to use leftover wine. Everyone makes a joke, what is leftover wine? We get that every single time. And then in order to download the PDF, you have to give your email address. And I bet any of y'all could do something similar. We get really valuable emails from it. And of course, once we get that email, we treat that customer with the utmost respect.
And now let's just jump right into zero-party data. What are some of the ways that you guys are collecting that specific subtype of zero-party data?
Sure. So as I mentioned, zero-party data is something like a poll or a survey. So we do a lot of post-purchase surveys, which is pretty common. We will ask our customers who have bought from us previously, if we're thinking of launching something new like a wine bag, what color do you prefer? We'll send out a survey through .digital. We are a .digital customer. Or we will do a poll on Facebook, or even an open-ended question. So that text feature on Facebook where you could just do a text post, nothing fancy, no image, don't even use the poll feature, just ask a question. We've gotten more comments on that type of post than anything we do. So that's been really, really useful.
Great to hear. One of the things that I like about wine enthusiasts emails is when you go to opt out, they give you the choice to receive certain types of messages, and that allows them to have more control over keeping recipients and consumers that still want to hear from them, but maybe want to hear not as much or not as frequent. And so they have the ability, and they've given that, and I really like that about your program.
Thank you.
So we've talked about what some of the examples of successful sending and some of the tips for using zero-party data. One of the topics that comes up frequently is the creepy factor of using data, and we all come across the articles that talk about privacy, and we talk about how much is too much data, and I think it's important that we address it, and we address it head on, and we make sure that data is being used responsibly. And I'm not asking you a question here, I'm sorry. But I know that Wine Enthusiast is very respectful of its data. And what are some of the types of emails that you send or messages that are personalized and specific towards the consumers that you send to make sure that that data is being used?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you said, Tanya. I mean, the baseline thing, don't email people that haven't opened or clicked on an email in a really long time. It's not worth it. You will kill your deliverability. So the widest we ever go is a year. Most often we only email people that have opened or clicked within 3 months. And so just RFM is the baseline. Beyond that, we do let people opt down. We do email a lot, but I really believe in email. It's incredibly powerful. It's a very close relationship that you can have with your customer. Mm-hmm. But companies are being more sensitive now to different people's life situations. So one thing we did when we planned our Father's Day campaign, for example, and Mother's Day, is we asked people, do you not want to receive anything about Mother's Day? And we did have people opt out, and they would get the next email, but maybe just not the Mother's Day, because we don't want to be making our customers sad, right? So little tweaks like that you can think about to just think about that end user as a whole person.
Mm-hmm. It's very important that the consumer, the end recipient, is the focus of the reason why the messages are being sent. It's easy to step into the place of why wouldn't they want to hear about us instead of saying what do they want to hear about us and why. One of the things Wine Enthusiast does very well is in the footer of their emails that tells the recipient, you're receiving this email because we got your email address from, and it will give that clear delineation between, definition of where the data was received. And that just makes it a very an easy conversation to have when a customer's like, wait, why am I receiving these emails? And it reminds them that they want that content, that they're interested in it, and they can make the choice to not receive it if they want to, but they know that they specifically have opted in.
Just to build on that, Tanya, I think another good tip is never assume. Never assume the customer remembers where you got their email address from. So we do contests every so often, but not very frequently. And I would say if you're going to do a contest to get emails, make sure that you email that customer within, I would say, 12 hours of opting into the contest and remind them. We've seen when we don't do that, people opt out, or they'll actually mark it as spam because they don't remember. They did a quick widget on Facebook. They opted in to get a free corkscrew, and then they don't hear from us for 12 hours. People have a short attention span. They're like, who are you? So never take anything for granted, and stay in close touch with your customers.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things that I really like, and this is going to switch a little bit, that Wine Enthusiast does with their email program, is the content is going to be about wine. You get an email from Wine Enthusiast, you know that the content is going to have something related to the reason why you do business with Wine Enthusiast. It's because you want wine products, or you want to see what different wines are out there and how they're rated. One of the other things that they do well is if there's something that's related to what their recipients want and are interested in, they put that in the subject line if it's different. So for example, I received one a couple of weeks ago that said growlers and beer for your camp out. And I'm butchering that subject line. You guys
said it right.
had a much, it came off, and it really prompted me to open the email, and I interacted with the wine content that you'd expect to be in there, as well as I went down and clicked through and read that article. So it was something that I found interesting. I think the most recent one you sent out was the best tequila for margaritas, and I also love margaritas. Maybe I like alcohol too much, but it was very interesting. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about some of the other things that you use your email program for, that your recipients are interested in and know that it's relevant to them.
Yeah, I guess I'd say it's about thinking of what else you have a right to talk about, what else customers like who are buying your products or haven't yet bought your product yet. So if you're a bag company, where are people taking your bag? Perhaps you have the right to give them tips about their workouts if they're using it for workouts. So what else can kind of entice people? I really feel like building first-party data and zero-party data is the best way to grow your business.
It really
You don't want to build it on third-party or second-party, which is data that you borrow from a third source, because you never know what the platforms are going to do the next day, and you never want to be so removed from your customer that you can't have a two-way conversation with them.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us to, if we bring it back to that first-party versus zero-party data topic, it is very timely. I've had this conversation come up frequently in the last few months, and the number of blogs of members of the industry talking about it is going up as well. So it's important for us to know the definitions. But one of the things that we were talking about, and I hope you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here.
No problem.
What is your actual opinion of first-party versus zero-party data?
Sure. Well, I think bottom line, like I said, you want to own your data, whether you call it zero-party or first-party, it doesn't really matter. But they say zero-party is really just a subset of first-party. So you can use first-party techniques to get zero-party. So one thing we've started doing is in our welcome stream for our emails, which if you don't have a welcome stream, I definitely encourage it. When we tell them about the company, we also give them a chance to tell us some of their interests. So rather than asking for their interest in yet another email, you bake it into the welcome stream. So thanks for joining the Wine Enthusiast list. This is what we do. We're trying to make wine accessible and approachable to all. By the way, would you consider yourself a beginner? Would you consider yourself a connoisseur? And so that way we know how to talk to you. And they don't have to answer it at all. So that's sort of the difference between zero and first party, whereas getting the email address would be the first party, but the zero party is that additional preference ask.
Yeah. And would you say that you have some concerns about how you use first party and second party data differently? So is there the risk level between the two? And sorry, this is a question that's coming from what you just said. Would you say that do you see some risk associated with either that are different?
Well, I think with second-party data, you never know what kind of change Apple's going to make or Facebook as far as privacy, and so you're sort of in a bit of a vulnerable position if you're building mostly second-party data.
Yeah. And then taking that over to the zero-party versus first-party, would you say there's any different risk there between the two?
Well, again, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, there could be a whole policy that you can no longer even use first party, and so you always want to protect yourself and sort of cover every base. So I guess the more you can kind of get that zero party, again, the closer the relationship you have with the customer, and the better off your business will be, because you don't want to build your business on the backs of other businesses, right?
It is very important that consumers are the forefront of the messages that are being sent, and that the data that is being used is being collected for a purpose. And I know you guys are very good about keeping the topics that you ask, the questions that you ask about your preferences, very related to wine and to those topics. The coffee shop example is used quite frequently in these conversations, where you go to a coffee shop regularly. If you do in your community, that coffee shop is going to have a lot of data on you, more data than they need to sell you a cup of coffee. And so it's about making sure that you're understanding the data that you have, and that it's, if you're in that coffee shop situation where you have access to that data, it's important to filter that data out. If a consumer is going to feel like you shouldn't know that about them, you shouldn't be tracking that information.
Mm-hmm. Or don't ask for something if you don't have a specific use for it, because you don't want to annoy anybody.
And then there you'll really start getting into some of those privacy laws that you don't want to be butting up against.
Sure.
So we can ask some more questions and we can talk, but I think we have I was wondering if anybody in the audience has a question that they want to ask about data in general, or about having a personalized journey for your digital messaging, your multi-channel messaging. I'm not sure if anyone has a question. Yes? About retargeting in the alcohol space.
As far as social or on social, from what I've seen, so we're tricky because we're more of a home goods brand, so we don't sell wine, but from what I've heard from wine companies, people that do sell D2C spirits, as long as you have an age parameter, even on YouTube and such, you should be okay. So I haven't heard of people running into issues with retargeting. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah? Yeah. I do have actually a quick comment on that. If you're able to send to them that initial message, you should be fine with the retargeting from a privacy perspective. I'm not a lawyer. I just work with the laws all the time. Any other questions on data or anything for wine enthusiasts? Do you have an opportunity for...
Anybody like wine? Not like wine? Yeah.
Well, I know we haven't hit our time, but rather than be up here, I think we've given a solid definition of what zero-party data is and what first-party data is. And I think it's important that as marketers, we are understanding the terminology that's coming to play and understand how to deal with it, knowing that there are going to be a lot of opinions that get published, and we have to know how to address them and how to handle those opinions, and know how to apply them to our own businesses to make sure we are fulfilling what we're supposed to be doing with our customers, because we have an unofficial contract with our consumers. They do business with us because they like our brands and they respect our brands, and that unofficial contract needs to be a two-way street between the businesses that have that data. And so thank you for listening, and hopefully it was helpful and relevant.
Thank you.